This is Bent Discipline. Welcome back. This is the beginning of the series. Now, I'd like to start with the mistakes I've made. And this is just a very small snippet of the mistakes that I've made. But I'd like to start here and maybe I can go on from here. So let's read it together. No two subs are alike. Not only are their interests unique, but so are the methods needed to properly guide and train them. This cannot be understated. So often, a master will learn one way of doing things, or a dominant, I should say, will learn one way of things that works for him with one submissive and assumes that works for all submissive. Now, this is just silly. No two women are alike in their sexuality, in their interests, and in their needs. So you're going to have to learn again each time, and you have to be able to adapt to their needs or simply find a submissive that is within the realm of your abilities. That's another very important fact. Just because someone's submissive and someone's a dominant and maybe they're physically attracted to each other doesn't mean that they're a good match. They have to be not only physically but also mentally able to be compatible. I guess that's the best way of saying it. Just because someone looks the right part doesn't mean that they are the right part for you, if that makes any sense. So there's many situations where I've not accepted a submissive simply because I'm smart enough now to realize that we wouldn't be a good match. If you think just because you're a dominant that any submissive is open season, then you're going to be in a world of hurt for both of you because they may not be the kind of submissive that you're looking for, or you may not be able to adapt to what their needs are, and it will just cause a lot of unnecessary conflict on both parts. So, first things first, no two submissives are the same, and what's needed to train them is completely different. Next, when starting a new DS relationship, take your time. It's not a sprint, although it may seem, I've been there before, it doesn't mean that my sub has been there yet. Geez, I can't even read my writing. Let's try that again. When starting a new DS relationship, take your time. It's not a sprint, and although I may have been there before, that doesn't mean my submissive is ready for everything yet. You can get into a pattern where, on the last submissive, you got them to a certain level of training and experience, and they're really good at doing all these different things, and they can withstand a lot of things that you're doing. When you have a brand new sub, remember they're a brand new sub, and some of them are coming from the vanilla world, so they need a slow adjustment to this world. You can't go from vanilla world to BDSM instantly. You can't just go from one door to the next and just assume that they're ready to go. There's a lot of education that has to happen, a lot of understanding and patience. Excuse me. But if you take your time, it'll be well worth it. Now, if you're in a rush, then that's on you. There's a problem with you if you're in a rush, because when you rush, you make mistakes and you're trying to get to something too quickly. You're too hungry for something. And as a result, you're going to make mistakes. And you know what? Honestly, it's not attractive. Women are not attracted to men that are just trying to get in their pants. If that's all you're doing, you're in the wrong thing. You should be focusing on something else. You should be going out to bars if that's what you're looking for, because honestly, this is a lot of effort. I've had many of my male vanilla friends ask me to become dominants. They want to learn about dominance. I'm saying, listen, if you're doing it for the sex, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, because it's so much effort, so much time. It's really not worth it. And they understand now. They believe me. So the next thing is, I make mistakes, own them, admit them, repair what I've done. Oh my God, I've made many mistakes. Some that hurt me, some that hurt my submissive, some that hurt random strangers that just got in the crossfire. I'll go into those in more details. If you lie and hide from your mistakes, you're not going to grow as a dominant. You're not going to grow as a person. Same thing with the submissive. If you hide from your mistakes, you're not going to grow from the experience you're not going to learn from the experience, and you may repeat the same experience again, or you'll be so sheltered that you're not willing to try similar things because you'll be fearful of the same thing happening again. So understanding education, information is key to your growth and development, and it will protect you from making the same mistake again. So if you're going to fail, fail forward. Don't fall backwards. Okay, my new submissive is not a previous submissive, should not be labeled or treated as such. Every new submissive is a new book, is a new page, a new chapter. You have to remember that they are not the same person, and you may have PTSD from your previous sub where she would do something and that would mean something, and you'd be fearful of something happening because she's not responding in a certain amount of time. You're like, oh, what's going to happen next? You have to remember that each submissive is unique and that they're not the same submissive. You can't punish them for something another submissive's done. You have to give them the opportunity to grow and develop and be their own individual. And I don't label them the same. Each submissive is a mix of different archetypes. And the crazy thing is that not only are they a mix of different archetypes, but those archetypes change from day to day and over time. The mix changes, I should say, where they may start off as a little and then become a slave or a pain slut or who knows what. And so you have to be able to, one, interpret who and what they need and are, and give them what they need and are, and then be adaptive to these changes that occur over time. They don't start as one thing and stay one thing. I mean, that's never happened to me. Maybe it does, I don't know. But it typically, through the growth and experience, they morph and change and learn and grow and develop and become different than they started. So you have to be able to adapt to these changes, and if you don't, then that will be the end of the relationship, because if your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, you encounter a screw and you're fucked. So you've got to learn how to grow and develop and adapt to the changing needs of your submissive. Subs will push their limits to please me, unwilling to use their safe words. Remind them there is no shame in using a safe word. Now, one of the things that I do when I first start is I make sure that they remember their safe words, and I gently push them to the point where they have to use a yellow, and I remind them in that process to use their safe words. It's very, very, very important. A submissive will not want to use their safe words, and especially a pain slut will never want to use their safe words. So it's important that you make them aware that there's no shame in it. There's no punishment for using a safe word. It is a necessary requirement of this type of experience. If they don't do that, then they're actually putting themselves in danger and you at risk. So make sure that that's an important part of your training, is that they're well aware of and are able and comfortable to use their safe words. Saying goodbye properly to a sub is just as important, if not more, than the quality of the relationship itself. The longer, the deeper the relationship, the more time and effort it will take for a submissive to adjust after. Be there for her. Now, this is probably counterintuitive to most new dominants. They think it's all about them. And really, you've been given such a great gift. The one thing you can do is be a man about it and take responsibility and say, listen, I've gotten such a great gift from this submissive that the least I can do is make sure that she's as good off, if not better off, after having been with me than before. Only an asshole or a jerk would just cut and leave them. So in my contracts, one of the things that I do is I give them at least 1/3 of the duration of the contract in a form of protection afterwards, where I'm still fully available to them at any time of day or night, and we meet on a regular basis. We're no longer sexual partners, but we are life partners. We're both trying to achieve the same thing, which is growth and development and maturity. So this sometimes is challenging when you have your next sub, but it's important that they have that going into the relationship, knowing that it's not just going to die at the end of the relationship. You're not just going to cut and run. And also it's very healthy for them and for community if subs coming out of a relationship aren't just dropped, because it's very, very hard on them. and they need to get their own stability before you move on. So it's very, very important. The more I learn, the less I know. That has never been truer. I've been doing this my entire adult life, and I'll go into that in more detail. And every time I'm with a new sub, every time I'm with my existing sub, I learn something new. When I talk to others, when I read books, and sometimes the books aren't even about BDSM. Sometimes they're about sales or personal development or something else. I learn something that references back to BDSM, to communication skills, to love languages, and you never know it all. You're never a perfect dominant. It's impossible. We're all growing individuals. We're imperfect, but we're trying, and that's the most important part. That you are attempting to better yourself for your submissive on an ongoing basis. If you think you've finished, you haven't. You haven't even begun. You're a terrible dominant if you don't continue to educate yourself and become more and become better. And the last thing on this list is to remember to thank your sub regularly for the beautiful gift of submission and the trust that they bestow upon you. Without them, you're not a master. Now, I've gotten some flack for this because, I kind of decided that there's different levels of dominance. I mean, anyone can call themselves, I'm dominant, but a dom in the community is someone who's responsible for others. And in my opinion, a master is someone who's kind of like a master chef, someone who's mastered the art of being responsible for submissives. And the only time you should ever be allowed to call yourself a master is when you have at least one person to vouch for you that has been your submissive or is present in your submissive. If someone calls themselves a master and they've got decades of experience in the community, but they don't have a single submissive presently or in past that will vouch for them, are they really a master? I mean, that's the question, right? It's kind of like a painter who's never sold a painting. Anyone can paint, but only a few make pieces of art that other people want to buy. And this, for me, is much the same. Anyone can call themselves a dominant or a master, but only a true master would have a willing sub that would vouch for them and say, listen, this guy is legit. So in my opinion, two things. One, you have to remember to thank your submissive, because really it is a gift of her trusting you and believing in you and having faith in what you're doing is right. And two, that not everybody who says they're a master is actually master. And one of the key ways to decipher the two is, do they either presently have or have they recently had a submissive that will vouch for them, that will say, this guy's legit. So that's what I've got for you right now. I have lots of mistakes that I will go into in great detail. Relationships that I should never have started, types of discipline that I shouldn't have done, not understanding the differences between discipline and punishment, mistakes about the psychology of the different subs that I was working with. So all of these things I'll go into greater detail. This is the first snippet of mistakes that I've made, and hopefully you've garnered something from this. Other people have enjoyed it. It's one of the first posts I put on FetLife. If you haven't been on FetLife, it's the kinky, perverted version of Facebook. It has a community of good and bad people, so take it as you will. Don't expect everybody on there to be good. Protect yourself always, and be safe. Talk to you soon.